The Scream franchise is remarkably consistent, especially for a horror franchise, though its best sequel is the one that received the least amount of notoriety. When the original Scream was released in 1996, it changed the face of the horror genre and brought slashers back to the forefront, while also playing up the meta side of things. The movie was a huge critical and commercial success, spawning 2 sequels in the next 4 years before the series went dormant for over a decade. However, it came roaring back with 3 more installments, including a Scream 7 that's on the horizon. Picking the best sequel can depend on who you talk to, though. Every Scream movie has its merits, yet there are those who prefer the original cast of characters in Scream 2 and Scream 3, while others like the new core introduced in 2022's Scream. However, the best actual sequel lies somewhere in between. Over a decade after Scream 3 seemingly wrapped up the franchise, Scream 4 was an attempt to revitalize things. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, as Scream 4 is the only entry in the series to not crack $100 million at the box office. That's why it took another decade before a 5th installment was released. However, a deeper dive shows that Scream 4 is actually pretty great. For one thing, it gathers the original core trio of Sidney, Gale, and Dewey in interesting fashion, while having them mesh well with new characters. Connecting Sidney to the story through her niece Jill was great. The film also played up the meta aspects that worked in the original, while featuring an array of kills that horror fans love. Scream 4 was also a step up from Scream 3 from a critical standpoint, going up to 60% on Rotten Tomatoes compared to 43%. Alas, there are plenty of other reasons why it's the best sequel. The big twist in Scream 4 centered around Sidney's niece Jill being the one behind the murders. Interestingly, this wasn't about revenge or anything along those lines. Jill simply wanted to be famous. She orchestrated everything to redo what her aunt did and turn into a star because of it. This was a case of the Scream franchise being ahead of its time. In 2011, social media was still growing, yet the film used it and the obsession with fame as the main point for its antagonist. Over a decade later, people everywhere are using social media platforms like TikTok to try and become celebrities. Obviously, Jill took it too far in her case, but the theme remains a key, well-done one that makes Scream 4 kind of timeless. It also paved the way for concepts in future entries, like the multiple Ghostface copycat killers in Scream 6. One of the best things about 1996's Scream is the now iconic cast. Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Skeet Ulrich, Drew Barrymore, Matthew Lillard, and more are all memorable. The sequels have always had talented actors involved, but Scream 4 is actually kind of a cut above the rest. On top of the returning cast from the original films, Scream 4 is anchored by the talented Emma Roberts as Jill and Hayden Panettiere's Kirby, who returned in Scream 6. That's just the beginning, though, as their classmates include Rory Culkin, Eric Knudsen, and more. Scream 4 also boasts a slew of impressive performers in smaller roles. Anthony Anderson and Adam Brody have a ridiculous cameo as 2 police officers. Marley Shelton plays another cop, and Alison Brie shows up as Gale's publicist. That's a lot of talent, without even mentioning the opening scene. The opening scene of 1986's Scream is iconic, and one of the best in cinematic history. The sequels have kept up with creative openings, but have never been able to fully capture the magic of that first time. However, Scream 4 found a fun way to deliver the best opening since the 96 installment. Playing off the idea of having a recognizable face involved like Drew Barrymore, Scream 4 took things to the next level. The opening featured several notable faces from popular TV shows, all ending up as victims of a killer. The twist was that each scene was from a stab movie. The string of scenes within a scene is great, but when you consider the cast involved, it gets even better. Britt Robertson, Lucy Hale, Shanae Grimes, and Amy Teagarden were all part of it. The true highlight was the Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin scene, though, which puts a twist on the killer formula by having Belle stab Paquin for being annoying.